Whispers of war, intelligence reports and rising tensions. The world held its breath. Tensions were high. For weeks, the drums of war had been beating louder, fueled by escalating rhetoric and military posturing. On October 7th, 2026, whispers of a storm turned into a roar. Western intelligence agencies had sparse and inconclusive reports. Russian agents, deeply embedded in the heart of Paris and London, had gone dark. Their silence was deafening, a chilling prelude to the nightmare that was about to unfold. The sparse reports sent ripples through intelligence communities. Analysts worked feverishly, trying to decipher the meaning of the sudden silence. Was it a glitch in communication, a technical error, or was it something far more sinister, a sign that something big, something terrifying was about to happen? The world watched and waited, holding its breath, bracing for the storm that seemed inevitable. The silence from the Russian agents was particularly concerning. These were not low-level operatives. They were ghosts, shadows who had moved undetected for years in the highest echelons of power. Their sudden disappearance could only mean one thing. They were compromised, or worse, they were preparing for something catastrophic. The world was on the brink, teetering on the edge of a precipice. As the hours turned into days, the tension became almost unbearable. Governments issued travel advisories, urging their citizens to leave major European cities. Security was heightened at airports, train stations, and other public places. The world was a powder keg, and the fuse had been lit. The only question was, when would it explode? October 11, 2026, 3:43 p.m., Paris. The City of Lights, a day that would forever be etched in the annals of history. A day that began like any other, with the sun casting its golden glow on the bustling streets, on lovers strolling along the Seine, on tourists marveling at the architectural wonders. But this normalcy, this illusion of peace, was shattered in an instant. A blinding flash, a deafening roar. The Eiffel Tower, the symbol of Paris, of love, of hope, was engulfed in a fiery inferno. A ballistic missile, launched with terrifying precision, had found its mark. The iconic structure, once a beacon of light, was now a twisted, burning hulk, a monument to man's capacity for destruction. Panic erupted. The streets, once filled with laughter and the sounds of life, became a sea of screaming, fleeing humanity. People ran for their lives, desperate to escape the inferno that was consuming the heart of their city. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of burning metal. The ground trembled with the force of the blast, and a dark cloud, a mushroom of death and despair, rose ominously over the city. The world watched in horror as the unthinkable unfolded. Initially, the world was unaware of who was behind the attack. For a while, many believed the Communist Republic had no part in it. The attack was not just on Paris, not just on France, but on civilization itself.
I was just walking near the Eiffel Tower when I saw a bright flash. The next thing I knew, there was a massive explosion. It was chaos.
I couldn't believe my eyes. The tower was on fire, and people were running everywhere. It was like a nightmare.
I tried to help as many people as I could. The smoke was so thick, and the heat was unbearable. It felt like the end of the world.
Chaos reigned in the aftermath of the attack. Communication lines were down, transportation systems crippled. The streets of Paris, once a symphony of life, were now choked with debris and fear. The injured screamed for help, their cries lost in the cacophony of sirens and the panicked shouts of fleeing crowds. The city, once a beacon of hope and beauty, was now a scene of unimaginable devastation. The French government, struggling to comprehend the scale of the attack, issued an immediate evacuation order for Paris. Sirens wailed, their mournful cries echoing through the deserted streets. Millions fled, creating a mass exodus the likes of which the world had never seen. They clogged highways, overwhelmed train stations, their faces etched with terror and disbelief. The evacuation was a logistical nightmare. The sheer number of people fleeing the city overwhelmed even the most detailed emergency plans. Families were separated in the chaos, their frantic calls to each other lost in the overloaded communication networks. The elderly and the infirm were left behind, unable to cope with the crush of humanity. As the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows over the devastated city, the true scale of the tragedy started to become clear. The Eiffel Tower, once a symbol of hope, lay in ruins, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace. And as the smoke from the burning city drifted north, it carried with it a chilling message. The world was at war. News of the Paris attack spread like wildfire across the globe, sparking fear and outrage. World leaders condemned the attack, vowing swift and decisive action. But even as the world reeled from the horrors in Paris, another tragedy was about to unfold. 7:50 p.m. London, the heart of the British Empire. The city, still reeling from the news from Paris, was thrown into chaos once more. Another blinding flash, another deafening roar. This time it was the Palace of Westminster, the iconic home of British democracy, that was struck. The Houses of Parliament, a symbol of freedom and justice, were reduced to rubble in an instant.
The blast sent shockwaves across the city. Buildings shook, windows shattered, and people were thrown to the ground. The sky was filled with debris, raining down on the terrified population below. The Thames, usually a serene ribbon flowing through the city, churned violently as the shockwave from the explosion rippled across its surface. Panic gripped London. The streets, already filled with people glued to their phones, watching the horrifying news from Paris, became a scene of mass hysteria. The attack on London, coming so soon after the Paris attack, confirmed everyone's worst fears. This was not a random act of terror, but a coordinated, calculated assault on the very heart of Western civilization.